Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the IdOMUSIC podcast, and our goal and our mission is to empower and educate musicians and artists worldwide. And on today's episode, we sat down with thought producer Donlad Albright on becoming the co-founder of Tenderfoot TV, how he started in street scene promotions and marketing and music, and discovering a niche market in the podcasting world. Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the IdOMUSIC podcast, and I'm sitting down with co-founder of Tenderfoot TV, I guess would be appropriate title, but he's done plenty for the music and entertainment industry over the years, Donlad Albright.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here. And great to meet you for the first time.
Yes, great meeting you. I've heard amazing things about you. I haven't fully gotten the whole noontime story, so I'm excited to have another piece. I talked to Chris Hicks last year.
Yeah.
So he definitely mentioned your name. So I'm excited to get some. Let's go down memory lane just a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
But first of all, you are the co-founder of Tenderfoot TV, which I'm super interested in. It's a Atlanta-based content creation company that you started with your partner. I'm stumbling. Payne Lindsay, the director, music director. Or just director. You did music videos too,
music
right?
videos, short form docs, all that kind of stuff.
Right. So talk about Tenderfoot TV, what that is, and it's seen some pretty good success over the years. You were kind of, or you two were pioneering that space with this true crime. I don't know if people are familiar with the shows that you have, but Up and Vanished, being one of them, To Live and Die in LA, being another really popular one, and so on and so forth. But you've executively produced those, been a part of those, and kind of moved from where you were behind the scenes to in front of the scenes, which I think is interesting as well.
Yeah, not a path that I saw myself taking at all. Yeah. We started Tenderfoot TV in 2016. Yeah. And it was really served as a company that was just to release one podcast, one project, and that project being Up and Vanished. The goal initially was we wanted to make Up and Vanished a docuseries like The Jinx or Make It a Murderer. And we didn't have any connections in Hollywood to make that happen. So the lower bar of entry was podcasting. And because Serial has such success in narrative storytelling and true crime, Payne thought, I can take this idea and make it a podcast instead. So really the function of Tenderfoot was really just we needed a name to put on, Apple Podcasts when it said who the provider was. And you see the name is Tenderfoot TV, and we made a podcast because the goal was always to make a TV show. And that podcast ended up being this breakthrough viral sensation over, I think, 6 months. There was about 12 to 15 million downloads. And it was covering this cold case in South Georgia. This teacher named Tara Grinstead, former beauty queen, high school teacher, disappeared over a decade ago. And there was really no information, no real leads, no suspects. The podcast really dug up a lot of that information and put the spotlight back on this small town. And next thing you know, 6 months after the podcast came out, there were 2 arrests made.
Wow.
And then Payne, as the host and face, or voice, I should say, of this podcast, was just right there in the forefront. And he went from being behind the mic to on Good Morning America with, Nancy Grace and, that whole GMA team.
Kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, it was like one day he's, in Atlanta in our office, recording an episode. Next day he's in Ocilla, Georgia, standing outside of the courthouse talking about these 2 arrests. So from that point, it just steamrolled. We went from a total of 15 million downloads to doing 20 million downloads the next month. And really, because we never thought about starting a podcast company, we kind of began to start one on the fly, and we started to chase the success of this one podcast. And that's why we expanded in doing more true crime. We did Atlanta Monster, we did To Live and Die in LA, Culpable.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but Up and Vanished, I'm familiar, but not extremely. Up and Vanished, it is a series that accounts different stories, or how do you come up with what where do you discover the stories?
So it was as simple as, Payne got that inspiration to look into a true crime case, and it made sense to him to find a case that was closer to home, right? Because he found a case that was far away. How he's going to get back and forth?
Gotcha.
So he found a case from South Georgia. It just so happens that his grandma lives like 20 minutes away.
Wow.
When we started asking around, he asked his grandma, and she actually has a friend who saw the missing teacher the night that she disappeared. So all these different connections. That's why he really chose that case. He just was speaking to him, and then. So the entire season was all on this one case.
Gotcha.
So week after week, and then we were slowly chipping away at trying to find answers and slowly getting a bunch of tips and information in. So it was this groundswell. If it was just one episode on one case, you don't give the people enough time to dive in and really participate.
And how often were you putting it out? Every week?
Yeah, initially it was like every other week. Then we started doing these like supplemental episodes in between where we would dive a little bit deeper into the case. So they were getting content every single week. And the crazy part about it was that if you were unfamiliar with the case, you were able to listen, get familiar, and then if you lived in that town and you knew anyone that we were talking about, you could call in with a tip, and then Payne would go and investigate that tip. So you were really impacting the case, not just being entertained by a podcast.
Exactly. That's kind of dope. That's extremely niche space, and I think that's why it did what it did, and it gained so much success. And then obviously, like the arrest coming in, that was probably shocking for you guys.
Yeah, I mean,
nobody expected that.
Not something we set out to do, right? We knew
Y'all
it was
out
a
here
possibility.
fighting crime.
Yeah, like trust me, like that's not at all what we set out to do. And we just, like I said, we chased it. We didn't know what else to do, right? This thing was out of our control. It was its own living, breathing case, and we had to continue to chase it and follow it because the podcast was getting so many downloads. It was the new weekly news for everyone.
Right.
They weren't getting their information from CNN. They weren't getting it from MSNBC or local news. They were getting it from the podcast because we were going deeper. We were dedicating 45 minutes to this case every week.
Right.
The local news might talk about it. Even
give it a couple minutes.
Yeah, give it a couple minutes a day, and only with mostly rehashing the same information, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, it was a wild ride that really hasn't even stopped yet. There's been one conviction, and there's another trial that's coming up probably this year. So like since this podcast started in August 2016, it's still, it's been 3.5 years and it still isn't over.
I think that's so dope. I just really love like storytelling, and you two have created a way to tell this story or tell stories that like a lot of people left in the dirt to not even be sought after. So I think that's super cool. And then also the Atlanta murders obviously were huge. Like if you lived in the city, or I mean, even if you didn't, you heard about the Atlanta murders, right? So like that was another separate podcast that you guys started and created, and that series went on to do great things as well.
Yeah.
So we got to go to, or I'm curious to know how you have used and I guess we need to get into that story as well, but like how you've been able to use like your music business acumen and connections and translated that into this like podcasting / TV space. Because I mean, for those that don't know, To Live and Die in LA went from being a mini docuseries to going to linear TV with Oxygen, which I think, I don't know if that was, well, you said Tenderfoot TV, the goal was
that
TV.
Was the goal.
So you obviously checked off one of your goals in creating Tenderfoot TV. But yeah, I'm just curious to know like how you were able to use some of the things that you learned even from like Noontime and like marketing and branding a lot of the artists you worked with, and how that translated to this space.
Yeah, I mean the main thing, going into an industry, I've always been an entrepreneur, so I've always wanted to learn, create, and I'm inspired by just the emptiness of a space, right? If I can fill that space with creativity, with ideas, with a new method of how to get something done, that's what kind of interests me, what makes me tick and keeps me going. So, from starting my first T-shirt company in high school to even before that, mowing lawns, whatever it was to hustle.
What was the name of your first T-shirt company?
It was called Design Concepts, and it was a D and a K, kind of like the Carl Kanai C and the K. And it was my partner was my homeboy Deshaun, who's from San Jose as well, Deshaun Kennedy. So, No, I'm sorry. He was my partner in my second business. My initial partner was my boy Keith that I grew up with. So his name Keith, my name's Donald, so it was DK, right?
Got it.
So that was one of my first like official businesses that had like a business license and a tax ID number.
In high school?
Yeah, I think I was a senior in high school.
Wow.
And I was part of this program in high school that was a nonprofit organization called Project Giving Back that was ran by San Jose police officers, black officers. And they taught us, we ran a business with them where they taught us how to screen print T-shirts. Okay. So we started a design company to utilize their screen printing services. So we had a screen printer through this nonprofit, and then we had our own design company. Nice. I think one of the first shirts we did outside of our little DK shirt was a Freaknik 99 or 98 T-shirt.
Swear.
So like, yeah, like that was, so we was at Freaknik 98 or 97, whatever it was, just like out there selling our T-shirts that I designed on like my Dell computer or something like that. So, but yeah, that was always like the grind and the hustle of like trying to be something. And I think that probably came from my dad, you know, growing up. He was always his own boss. You know, Albright Construction was on every business card that he ever had, you know, laying around the house. So just, you know, he never like said you have to start your own business, but I think it just osmosis, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. It just soaked it up.
Yeah.
So when I got into the podcast space, it was like so wide open. Coming from music, super creative, aggressive, anyone can make it. This mentality of like, you can be as big. Everyone comes from the bottom, especially in hip hop, right? Every hip hop artist comes from the bottom. So you always have the mentality of like, man, I can always make it. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, we have the aggressive approach of street team and, you know, mobile marketing. And we're out there, you know, busting our ass, putting up poster boards in 20-degree snowy weather in Atlanta or passing out flyers. So we took all of that to podcasting, and they weren't ready for it. Like this podcast space was very safe. It was very traditional. It was more radio style, and a lot of either journalists or the investigative podcasts were done by actual investigators or journalists or attorneys. So
y'all came unconventional. No investigative reporting background.
Yeah, just like winging
we gonna do it.
And then the funny thing was we attended our first podcast conference, and I know how we got down on the music conferences. We went out there with street teams, rap vehicles, flyers, T-shirts, you name it. So we bombarded the podcast conference this way, and people didn't know what to expect. They were like, what the fuck is going on? Like models with T-shirts on and a truck outside playing like a video truck playing our podcast video trailer and with music and all that. So we got some flack from it, but it kind of expected that because we wanted to be like, we're inventing this space to be what we want it to be.
Right.
But some people recognized and loved it. I remember I got one of the guys, Steve Wilson from Apple, was like, he still talks to me about that today. He was like, man, I love what you guys did at that first conference because it stood out to him. But I think we wanted to always do something that no one else is doing or to a level that no one else is going and really have no rules and no restrictions on our ideas.
Yeah, that's kind of essentially what I want to ask you, like even about what you were able to do for artists at the time that you were working with the artists, like for those that don't know, I mean, anybody from Jay-Z to Outkast, DJ Khaled, Usher, and so on and so forth, that you had a big part in like the branding and marketing behind the scenes, correct?
Yeah. So
maybe not in every project.
Every case is so different, right? Like when I started as I'm out. The origin story of how I got into the music industry was pretty.
What brought you to Atlanta? Curious.
So what's funny is but kind of. So what happened was when I was in high school, my mom moved to Georgia, and I stayed in California with my dad.
Got it.
I came to visit in I want to say '94 when the Olympics. I think it was '94 Olympics.
Yeah. 93.
93, 94?
96.
96? Okay.
I'm tripping.
Yeah. It was 96 Olympics. I came to visit, and a friend of mine, his older brother, was starting Clark. So we went to Clark, Atlanta, as, you know, I'm probably 18, 17, probably 17. And all I see is like this sea of beautiful young black women on CAU campus. And me and my boy was like, we're coming here at some point.
Right.
So when I graduated high school, I went to San Jose State for a year and a half. Then I came to Atlanta. I was like, I gotta make it happen. You know, I'd been coming to visit every summer, and my mom was here, so I was like, I'm gonna make this my new home, and half my crew came out here to go to Clark as well, so it was cool. And we actually started that promotions company and ran it out of James P. Brawley dorms. You know what I'm saying? Like that was our first headquarters, right?
Yeah.
And the funny thing was like I'm on campus one day and we got invited to this to a party, and it was like, oh cool, a party that's not like a college party. It was like at Club Esso's, and that was like popping spot. We went there, and it was like, oh, you gotta be 21 to get in. We weren't 21. So the guy who was outside was actually the business partner of the guy who invited us, and was like, look, come to this party tomorrow, and gave us these passes to 112's Platinum Party. And I probably still have that pass somewhere in the shoebox, like a memorabilia shoebox. But we go to that party, and boom, everyone's in there. JD, Snoop, The Brat, Mace, Jagged Edge, 112.
Wow.
And I'm like, instantly like, okay, I'm not starstruck. I'm about to hustle. Like I'm about to go get business cards, meet people, shake hands, all that. And ended up meeting Ty Samuel was in promotions at LaFace Records, and that became our first street team gig. We weren't getting paid. We were just out there hustling. That's when I was, Soul Food soundtrack and Donnell Jones, I think Usher, My Way was probably out at that time. So like that was my first introduction to the music industry.
Wow.
And it became a business kind of because it was costing me money. I was the only one with a car. So it was like to get around Atlanta, it was costing me gas money. So we all pitched in on the loss, and that was the start of the business. And then that started to turn a profit when we started to actually get paid. And that's really where Patchwerk comes in. The first person to ever write me a check in the music industry was from Patchwerk.
Nice. For promoting?
For promoting. Man, I was driving up, we was working. I was putting up poster boards on MLK and Northside, and on a building that probably doesn't even exist anymore. And BJ was driving up the street and was like, yo, how much y'all charge for that? And was like, shit, I don't know. Like, we never been paid for this before, right? And then we ended up coming into a meeting at the old Patchwerk, and Patchwerk was our first paying client, promoting Mean Green and Raz Kaz and, all those acts. So, yeah, that was like, it was an official business when we started getting paid.
Yeah, that's dope to know that, you got because I could say the same, that I feel like my establishing myself as a business started here too. So that's cool. I never knew that. So let's talk about I forget how I got here now that I'm thinking, you seem like you have even just talking about going outside of the podcast conference and, being almost revolutionary to that space by promoting your own business and your own podcast. Something similar that you learned over the years doing that in music. What is the formula for you? Have you cracked some sort of code to branding and marketing? Is there a code? What's your process? When you think about some of the projects that you've had over the years that you've been involved in, what's the first thing that you think about when you take on a client, or the first thing you think about when you start a creative project for you? I think that you probably think about it a little bit differently than even your partner, Payne, might, or somebody else in your world.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I never really I never really had a process. So the process always started with me. It was like, okay, looking at this or listening to this, what can I contribute? How would I make this relate to the person who doesn't know about it? And I think starting out, I was always face-to-face with consumers. I was passing everybody a flyer. I was at the retail store. So I got to know how people consumed content, at least back then when you had tapes, CDs, flyers, you know what I'm saying, retail visits, all that, right?
Yeah.
So I just felt like I knew I had the one-up on everybody. If you started as an intern, you was getting coffee and sending FedExes and all that. I was out there, not even getting in the club, talking to people outside of the club, giving them flyers, giving them this, talking to them as they come out, messaging like, hey, new Outcasts in stores now. And I would see what would work and what wouldn't work. So I just kind of absorbed all this information that was coming back to me from consumers, the people who we were trying to go get to buy these records or go to these shows. And so I guess I just started from that standpoint. When I got into promotions was all about the execution, right? where are you standing at when you're passing out those flyers? You know, what polls are you hitting up? That was just strategy. That was just like being smart enough to get there first, know to go all the way up the pole, how to get them to stay. It was like tricks of the trade that you just knew if you applied yourself. The rest of it was more like absorbing what was coming back to you from those consumers and then understanding them. So the promotions led to marketing, and then marketing was like, okay, what visual is going to appeal to the girl that I met outside the club or the kids I go to school with, you know? So it really relied heavily on my experiences of dealing directly with those people, but also me just figuring out what would I want to do? Like, what's the creative shit that I think is dope? And I think that's where a lot of it started, was like working with, you know, graphic designers and coming up with shit that I thought was dope. And if I think some shit is dope, my goal is like, everyone else has to think this is dope too. So how do I make them, you know, accept this and feel the same way I feel about it?
Like, believe in it.
Yeah. So if I hear an artist and this song is dope, you can't get me off of the fact that this song ain't dope, because I'm just not doing a good enough job presenting it to you, presenting the artist to you, marketing it to you the right way, because you should feel about it the way that I feel. And that just comes from, I guess, the confidence in my opinions of how things go. You know what I'm saying? So, but I think, get back to what you said earlier, I think, you know, working with all these different artists, it was all different capacity. Like, some of them it wasn't the hands-on creative. You know, with Jay-Z, it was more Jay-Z Rockefeller Records, and we were like one of their first. We were their Atlanta team, right? So we would work on everything from their vodka to their albums to movies, you name it.
And what capacity? Like, it was just
blasting the streets. Same with LaFace. Same with so Outkast. I mean, we would do tour stuff with them. Dre was always super cool. I actually saw him on the plane like 9 months ago, and he always recognizes me. Even if he doesn't know who I am exactly, he's like. So we talked, we exchanged numbers, and he was real cool. Right. But even when we were out there, like, I remember being out in front of Phillips Arena, just, you know, promoting it. He would pull his Range Rover over and just come say what's up and talk to us. So for those guys early on in my career, it was less hands-on on the projects and more hands-on on the execution of getting that message out to the people. And then as it evolved into marketing is when I got with Show Enough and Jazzy and Noonie, which is the extension of the Noontime family. And working on, you know, that's when the marketing turned into A&R and then turned into management. So working with Lloyd hands-on and helping to sequence the Street Love album and getting an A&R credit on that album. And, you know, people just trusting my vision of like, this should be the cover, the single that we use, the picture we use for the single cover. Let's design it this way. Or, you know, even if I didn't make a final decision, I was in the room when people were making decisions.
Do you think that it's a matter of, I mean, because the people that listen to this podcast are all aspiring whatevers, you know, like, and I don't mean to say it in any type of way, but just like, you know, of the music and entertainment space, or they're entrepreneurs, they're serial entrepreneurs too. So I want you to tell it from a perspective of like not being humble. Like, do you think it's the way that you execute yourself in a room full of people who are making decisions? Like, why would you say you're the person for the job specifically? Like, why do people listen to you? Is it like a commanding thing? Because even when I asked you, like, you know, from transitioning from behind the scenes to being in front of, you're like, I never even thought that I would ever see the day. And it's like, but you are, and people listen to you. So, just speak on what do you think that is, just kind of looking over your career, thinking about the spaces in the rooms that you were able to be a part of or be in.
Honestly, like, I think it's just like having confidence in your own ideas. And I think all it takes is one person to believe. Like, I didn't get myself into, it's like this, I got myself into those rooms, but I had a lot of help. So, you know, one of my early clients was Noontime, and we were promoting for every act from Absolute on Def Jam to Cha Cha and Jim Crow, and, you know, so all those guys. And I got to meet Chris, I got to meet Ryan, I got to meet Noonie, and me and Noonie just clicked. So when I had moved to California for a couple years and came back to Atlanta to take the marketing job at Show Enough, and that's because the grind and the work that I put in as a street team guy for Noontime, and just, I don't know, I have to really ask Noon, like, why did you connect with me? Why did you want me to run marketing? I think Laura, who used to work here at Patchwerk as well, like, she's told Noon, like, we should bring Donald over. But, like, I want to know, like, why did he want me to come and do that? Because there was a confidence that someone else had in me that I already had in myself, because I would just work my ass off. Like, it doesn't matter what it was. I always saw myself learning the job above mine, right? That's how you can't go from promotions, from street team to promotions to marketing to A&R to management without learning those next steps, because those are all really steps up. They're not steps down, or they're not even linear, right? Like they're not a lateral move. So I think you have to learn everyone's job around you. And because the guy who's working under you is coming for you, and you should be coming for the person above you and above them, and not even in a malicious kind of way, but like you want them to elevate too if you're all on a team.
Right.
So I think it was really just like working my ass off, and I think people always say that, but like it's cool to say, but like shit, I was putting up poster boards and promoting at when Atlanta clubs closed at 7 a.m. Right? I had class at 10 a.m., 9 a.m. And I did that for a year and a half before I said, man, I can't. School is interrupting what I'm trying to do on the entrepreneur side. So I had to I had to drop out of school to start my company. But I did them both for a year and a half nonstop. You know what I'm saying? So you can say you working hard, but like you got to really go out there, and you're not working hard unless someone else is recognizing your hard work. Because if they're not, you're not working hard enough. You know, so yeah, that's what I would attribute it to, is just like believing in myself and having confidence in my ideas. But like it was Nooney who put me in the rooms with Craig Cowman and Mike Karen at Atlantic, because when it came time to go present this marketing plan to Atlantic, I was like out of my not field of expertise, but out of my element, because I wasn't in these big boardroom meetings. I was in the smaller, more the internal show enough noontime meetings with guys that I knew, and we were throwing ideas around. But then you get kicked up to the next level. I could have easily been left back in Atlanta and had them go present this idea and rely on their marketing team. But no, he brought me there. We went to New York. We presented this stuff too, and it was a learning experience. I took some lumps. I learned some stuff, but those are experiences that I value. And now, like, I'm not intimidated about any room that I walk into. You know what I'm saying? And I'm walking into rooms, closing, podcast deals, TV deals, whatever it is. And I think it all stems from someone having confidence in you to put you in a room that you probably weren't ready to walk into, maybe. You know what I'm saying? But you had to just go out there and do it.
Facts. That's what I needed. Thank you for that. Yeah. I'm curious when you talk about walking into those rooms and like negotiating, even when it comes to like podcast deals or, moving a docuseries to linear TV and like, et cetera. What are those conversations like? How can you become an effective negotiator even?
Yeah, I mean,
especially in a world that is so new.
It's funny because it's new, but it's really like it's the same as the music. It's entertainment, right? So the deals, you have to learn the difference between TV and film and podcasting and music. But like I use a lot. Like it's very familiar. Touring is exactly the same. We did a podcast tour, no different than the tours that I've done with Lloyd, the tours I've done with August, the tours, all those things. Managing a tour, same thing. Closing these deals. Once you understand the terminology, and then okay, what is a terrible deal? What is the average deal? What is a great deal? And then you're going to go and you're going to sign your first deal. It's going to be terrible because you're trying to get into the game. Now you want to, execute that deal, get a pilot, get it greenlit, get a series on air. And now you're like, okay, I now have 3 more hit podcasts. Whoever wants these got to come to the table with a better deal. So once you understand what a good deal is, then your goal should be, which mine always is when I walk into a room, I want them to close the best deal they've ever closed. Because that doesn't only benefit me, it benefits the guys coming in after me. Right? Like I'm always trying to go one step higher, but then you have to deliver on these deals as well. I think the music industry is a great example of big deals being paid out, those deals not delivering, and then it sets everybody back 5 years. You know what I'm saying? So I'm always trying to elevate my company, elevate whatever that industry is, and close the best deal with the best partners, and then deliver and make sure that it's successful. But I think it goes back to what I was saying about learning the positions. I try to know as much, I won't say as much. I try to soak in as much information and be a junior associate at a law firm, basically, right? So I have an attorney, but like we're talking like 2 attorneys on the phone. That's how the conversation goes. It's not like he's telling me a bunch of stuff that I don't know about. And I'm like, yeah, if you think that's the right move, then let's do that. It's really like I'm like another attorney at the firm trying to say, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Well, what if we did it this way? And sometimes we end up doing it my way. Or he'll say, yeah, but that's a good idea. And then he'll expand on that, and then we'll do it like that. Mm-hmm. Same thing with our agents at UTA. I function practically like an agent, a third of my time. So when I'm doing these deals, I want to know what he knows. I want to understand his strategy and her strategy. We have a couple agents. And so it's like learning all those positions just makes me a better it's easier to collaborate with, number one, because I understand the language that my attorney's speaking, that my agent is speaking. But you just learn that you have to really dedicate yourself to wanting to read those long contracts, and then not just read them, but understand them, and then question them, not because you think it's not a good deal, but because you want to learn. So a lot of times it's like I'll just have a conversation with my attorney about, teach me about this. Teach me about why TV is different than film, why unscripted is different than scripted. And it'll just be an hour-long conversation where I'm just learning. It's not about a contract. It's not about anything else. It's just like, you're on my team. You should be making me better. And not that I won't ever need them. I'll always need them. Mm-hmm. But I'll have a shorthand with them. And I'll know how I can apply my strategies to the legal side of the deal-making process. So,
facts. That's important. So what is the difference between TV and film? Like, what's the difference between working, I should say, in music and TV, since that was like your transition, or music and podcasting?
Yeah.
Though there are things that you've applied and you continue to apply from just your experiences, what would you say like the solid difference is, if there is one?
There's a lot of similarities, actually. I think music and podcasting, they're maybe the last two things you can, on a mainstream scale, where you can go create something, mm-hmm. put it out, and let people then love it, hate it, critique it, whatever it may be. But you can literally, Payne is no different. When he created Up and Vanished, recorded it in his apartment, edited it, and put it out, he was no different than the independent rapper who makes a song in his closet, mixes it, puts it on YouTube, and next thing you know, 6 months later, the kid's winning awards, right? Right. That's what Up and Vanished was. That's what Payne was. So like the similarities are crazy, and I think the difference is that in podcasting, and this is why we didn't talk about this. This is why I enjoy podcasting more than music, is that I'm dealing with a product. I'm not dealing with a person. And the reason why I burnt out of music is because of people, not because of the industry. I saw the industry changing. The industry changed 5 times while I was in it. You always adapt. You make you make it work. But you're relying on individuals, and unless you have 10 individuals all doing different things, you're really we would put all of our eggs in one basket. It was just our style. Like I'm not saying I would go back and do it any different, but because we just had a family style management label, everything that we did. So it was like we dedicated years into one artist's career. We always tried to bring up other artists at the same time, but some artists took so much focus that it was like, man, I just put all my eggs in this basket. And then it would thrive, it would do well. But you as a manager or as a label don't necessarily start to make money just because an artist is successful. Not when you've been putting tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars into this artist's career when no one knew who they were. Mm-hmm. So by the time the artist is blowing up, starting to feel themselves a little bit, starting to want to, take all the credit and, take none of the blame, you're barely starting to break even. So now your relationship is rocky. And I'm like, man, I just spent 5 years, dedicating to someone else's dream, trying to make someone else successful, rich, famous. If I put that same energy into myself or into product, then I think I could have a better long-term success, because Up and Vanished is IP, it's a product, right? No one, it's not going to catch attitude. It's not going to think the grass is greener on the other side. Same with, and I can go find a host for a new podcast, and I can do all these things at once, and now everything has value, and everything gets sold to TV, to film. We just did a book deal, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're developing things that can take on a life of their own, and no matter what, those are things that I own. I don't own any of the things that I gave to these artists over the years. Not there.
Just the memories.
Yeah, just the memories, right?
Yeah,
and not even, like, it was one of those things where it's like, you know, I don't own their publishing, even though I could have, you know what I'm saying? But, like, you know, the industry's in a weird place right now, a good place for artists, but, like, my take on where music is right now, maybe we're going a little bit off.
No, this is fine.
Like, when I was going out, the artists were being empowered, and they're empowered now more than they ever have been. And I think that's a good thing. But it's a good thing for the right artists. It's a terrible thing for the wrong artists. Because when some artists need structure, some artists need management. And if you don't have it, I think we're devaluing sometimes what a major label or a good manager brings to the table.
Right.
I think every artist can now make it on their own. But what about the ones who wouldn't have made it without the structure of a label, the guidance of an A&R, the guidance of an experienced manager? Now you can go make a hit record, put it out, and make a record that goes viral. But do you have the infrastructure to sustain success? You know, in the past, plenty of artists would have never made it without the structure of certain labels and the belief. So now it's more even playing field, but I feel like a different kind of artist is going to rise to the top now. And I think we would have missed out on a lot of great talent that needed that structure that probably isn't out there as much. There's still great managers, there's still great labels, but I think people are going a different route now. You know what I mean? And having success with it and promoting that success, which is good, but everyone can't be Chance the Rapper. It's like I tell everyone in podcasting, you can't just recreate the Tenderfoot TV story. It's too unique. Not that we did something so special. The circumstances were just happened the way that they did. Music industry background, film background for Payne. He edited the whole first season of Up and Vanished in a video editing program. If we had to pay someone to edit that podcast, it would have never came out. We didn't have the money. You know what I'm saying? So, and then the case that he chose happened to be a case that was solvable. And so many variables, close to home, right? Like, so you can't just recreate Chance the Rapper because it's a good story. Right. You can't just recreate Tenderfoot TV because it's a good story. You have to find your own way, but I think it may be easier for some people in this industry currently, and more difficult for others. And I think it's just it's a toss up.
Interesting. That's a good perspective, though. I wanted to ask you because I mean, obviously, you came in here. There are lights. There's a camera, or cameras, and I know for your podcast, there's no video. It's strictly audio. So I'm curious as to why you guys don't put that like on. I mean, I could probably assume the answer just because I know your goals, but why is there no video for the podcast?
So we do the video components that we have are like trailers, like you would see for a movie or a series, right? So we try to give you that visual element where you get some visual element, but it's not the actual podcast. I want people to, like, Payne comes from a video background, so he would shoot, edit, and create these dope visual, cinematic trailers, and we want people to see those trailers and think, oh, I can't wait till that comes on TV. When is that new Netflix series coming out? And then it's like, oh, it's a podcast. So it just opens your eyes and ears to what the quality of what a podcast can be, just through a visual that's not even representation of the actual audio content. Mm-hmm. And then we shoot some stuff here and there, but it's more so for promotional purposes and not like broadcasting exactly what's on the podcast in video form. Mm-hmm. This type of setting you can do that with in other podcasts, but like a true crime investigation, like we have enough time trying to edit the audio and getting it out on time. Imagine trying to have a video component to everything. And plus, cameras, they spook people. And when you need someone's personal account, when they're already skittish about telling you about this crime, about this missing person, the last thing that they want is cameras. Sometimes they don't even want audio equipment. That's true. And the beauty of it is, like, when you have a H6 and you put it on the on the table, and you don't even have mics set up like this, you forget that there's recording even happening, and you get people in that comfort zone. That's
true. I didn't think about it that way. Yeah. Well, congrats on the Audible Audio Pioneer Award the iHeart Radio Podcast Icon Awards. How does it feel to be recognized for your work in this space, especially after having a conversation of there are a lot of projects and people and humans that you've worked with that you probably, and not to say that it's about the credit, but a lot of people don't know your story or like what you were involved in. But from this side of the podcasting space and realm, you've been recognized as like a talent. You have, you know,
it's a complete 180. I remember being on the Bedrock video shoot with Lloyd, and there were like cameras everywhere. They're doing behind the scenes, and like Tiger's getting interviewed, and I'm like behind him, and then like I'm like there for like 2-3 minutes, and I noticed the camera, and you can see me like slowly like back out of the frame, and like that was I think I learned that from Noon. Like Noon has always been like the ghost. Like no one knows.
I literally have no idea what he looks like. Right. I have no idea.
And like for all the good things that he taught me, that was the worst thing I could have picked up from him. Because one thing I'll tell everybody out there is like, take your credit, and don't feel bad about you did that shit. Take your credit. I never took my credit. I mean, I never had titles on business cards. I never, the first credit I ever actually took was like the A&R credit on Lloyd's album, which was given to me. I didn't ask for it. But like, ask for your credit, take what's given to you. If what's being given to you isn't the proper credit, tell them that you want the proper credit. I fought for the credit that we have on our TV show, which was, it was due to me, but it was like some issues, and I was like, nah, like, okay, we'll go down this road, because I need everything that's supposed to come to me, because that's your currency. No one knows what you've done just because it's coming out of your mouth. Everybody's lying these days. You know what I'm saying? So take what you've earned, and then, put yourself in a position to get the credits that you are aspiring to get. And then the good things will happen. But if you remain behind the scenes, no one's going to give you an award. They don't even know you did shit, right? Like, and I look at being in the podcast industry for 3.5 years and really having success for 3 years or so, right? And getting an Icon award from, iHeart, which is, biggest audio company in the world. And 20 years in the music industry, nothing. And I'm not blaming the industry. It's partially my fault. I stayed in the background. Not that I wanted to jump in front of the camera and like be the manager / producer and be talking and all that stuff, but like there are ways to get in front of the camera. Look at how Coach K handles himself. That's how you are an executive on all fronts in these days. You have to have a face card to play.
Yeah,
you have to have that presence. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, aside from that, what do you think is one other thing you wish you knew then that you know now? I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be about music business, but just maybe business or, just being an entrepreneur and like marketing and branding, like all the things that you've learned. The best advice you can even give someone seeking a career in this space.
What I wish I knew then, I think I don't even know if it's about, so what I would tell people, I think I knew it. I didn't know that I knew it, right? Something that came natural to me was building relationships. I didn't know I was doing it at the time. I didn't have an agenda, like I'm gonna go to this conference and meet this person and stay in contact with them, because I never know where they're gonna, like, I didn't handle it that way. I was just
curious.
Good. Here's what happened. When you manage artists can be assholes. The last thing you can be as a manager is an asshole. So when the air is sucked out of the room because an artist has a bad attitude, and there's the program director and there's, the opening act or whoever may be around, you're the guy who has to be like, hey, so and you gotta, hey, how's it going? So what's going on? Tell me about your show. You're the guy who's like, okay, let me get the room back up, because this shit is awkward as hell because everyone's scared to talk. And, so I learned how to become more social and build relationships and make small talk because I needed to, right? So that I wouldn't be looked as the asshole manager who had the asshole client. So building those relationships, if you just look at the relationship between myself and Payne emailed me one day, cold email, and said, I want to shoot a video for August Alsina, an artist that I was managing at the time. And I didn't know who Payne was, and then someone said, oh, that's the guy who I had known him like through someone else, but I didn't have a relationship with him. So I was like, okay, I'll give him a shot at shooting a video. Shot like a $2,000 video. It was amazing, killed it. We ended up doing another video, a tour, some behind the scenes doc stuff. His biggest videos, or some of his biggest videos, 60,000, 50,000, and really set him up to start doing videos for Fast and Furious and all this other stuff, right? So we built this relationship creatively, and on the business side, I didn't know that Payne was going to one day say, I want to go investigate a cold case. But I maintained a relationship with him that was strong enough to when he said, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to call someone to do this with me, he called me. So had I not been the guy who, maintained those relationships, not wanting anything out of it, just trying to do good business and keep that good creative and business balance, and not just like use someone for a bunch of low budget videos and then cast them to the side for someone else. It was like, you got a $2,000 video? Let's do a 5. Let's do one for 10, 20. And believing in someone else, being able to spot his talent and not even knowing it would pay off one day, but say, okay, well, let's give him an opportunity. And he's now, giving me opportunity. That's how it's supposed to work. You know what I'm saying? So you go into it with a genuine, your reasoning behind it is just a genuine, and your purpose is to really accomplish something that you don't even have your eyes set on, but if you just do good business, it will come. I think that's the best advice. Like, those relationships are going to pay off at some point, and you have to believe that. And you don't do it today so it pays off tomorrow. My shit paid off 4 years later. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
that's amazing. I think that's a really important thing. I wanted to ask you, like, in terms of, we hear it all the time, and this is essentially what we've been discussing this entire conversation, but like, why content is king or queen now? Like, even outside of podcasting, a lot of the conversations I've had with networks are always like, well, you put it on YouTube and like you see the numbers there, or you put it out digitally and then you streamline it to linear TV, or even from a music perspective, like your visuals and vlogging and like all of these, it's not necessarily about the music.
Yeah,
it's just like creating content around, something that you've already put out, or even the way that we market things, from like I was watching the Future Drake video, and then how they did the pop-up here, the Hotlanta, whatever. Just like taking something and then like bringing more value, adding more value to it with like other content avenues. Why do you think content has become the new thing that everybody's craving, everybody's like talking about?
Yeah, I think everything has a next phase, and I think that's what people are looking at now. It's like, okay, you have a song. That's just like step 1 of 10. Look at all the things that like Cardi B is doing, right? And it started with television, right?
Reality television.
And then from reality television to not just like getting into the game, but like to the top of the game. And we haven't really seen that before, right? And then for her to be a female MC, it's like amazing. And so, but like, look at all the things that have come after that. So one piece of content leads to another, and there's all these different industries that if you don't know about, you won't understand how to position yourself to be able to benefit from those. So people will come to you when you're hot, and they'll give you an opportunity to do almost anything, right? If we can be successful in podcasting, they'll give us a shot in TV. If we can be successful in TV, they'll give us a shot in film. And then at some point, they already did, successful podcast, TV show, let's get these guys a book. Like, they will trust you to do the next thing if you do the first thing well. Yeah. And I think you have to just look at your content as a proof of concept for what you want to do that's bigger than that. Our podcast isn't just like a script, because a script is just a good idea on paper. It's not just a pilot episode, because a pilot episode, there's no numbers, right? So if you can create something that can not only look good, sound good, and be successful, it's now a proof of success, not a proof of concept. You've built an audience that you can now market the next thing to. So Up and Vanished TV series, which is on Oxygen, is going to, now we have an audience of millions of listeners who we can point over there, and that's valuable to a network. That's valuable to a public book publishing company, right? So the content is so important because it is the first step in how you adapt that content to other things.
That's true.
And that's where we're going. We're trying to adapt Up and Vanished on every level: book, TV, film, unscripted, scripted, you name it. So
I like that you compared it to basically like a proof of concept. That's essentially what it is. That's for sure. And then just what's next for Tenderfoot TV? What's next for Donlad Albright? For your company, just like outside of even just the shows, what else are you working on? We already talked about the book, but
yeah. So just expanding, we've been chasing the success of the podcast and success of the company for 3.5 years. And now I'm finally at a point where I can plan. So it's like the success we've had has been us like running down the street on fire. You know what I'm saying? Like now it's like, okay, I'm like, what am I doing in the fall of 2021? Like those are the projects that I'm planning for right now. And we have 3 to 4 more projects coming out this year, confirmed projects for 2021 already, nice. And probably 10 projects in development that we're either closing deals on or in early phase development. We're going to get into more hybrid shows and where we marry like the unscripted true story with the dramatized scripted version, and then also full scripted. Payne just created this project called Radio Rental, which is our first like hybrid show where Rainn Wilson from The Office is like the host of it, and very different than what we've done before. Same, I think, intense like storytelling, but we wrapped it in this world, this scripted world that I think is to me is our best and highly produced podcast that we've ever had.
That's amazing.
And so just taking it there, like I'm super excited about it because to now have an opportunity to sit down, plan, have the attention of an industry, be able to go seek out talent, and the biggest in TV and film and music are people that I can now reach in sports. You know what I'm saying? And say, hey, I'd like to do a podcast with you. Here's the idea. Or they're coming to us, which is amazing. So I mean, we should be expanding at a high rate and closing some deals. It'll be some like headline type deals. And just making more great content with more great partners over the next several years. And we'll see what happens there. Maybe, everybody's waiting for someone to come knocking on our door with that big check. You know what I'm saying?
It's coming.
That's how this tech industry goes.
It's coming for sure. That's amazing. I'm very happy for you. I'm happy for all of the success, that you've seen even, beyond the podcasting world just over the years. We didn't even dive into all of the things that you did in music, but and it's not a lot on the internet, by the way. It's probably nothing on the internet.
Yeah, probably not. I need to.
But I mean, a lot of it is current and new. It's what you're working on, so that's amazing. And I'm just happy for the success. And I wish Tenderfoot TV and all that you're doing the best. So I need you to tell them where they can find and follow you so that they can keep up with all the amazing things that you're doing.
You can find me on socials at D Albright 03. That's DALBRIGHT 03. And that's Twitter, Instagram, and I think that's it. Yeah, cool. I don't really do Facebook like that, but yeah, I need some followers. So come on, holla at me. Nice.
And is there a place that they can find Tenderfoot TV or check?
Yeah, we just redesigned our website. I'm actually pretty proud of our website.
Yeah, I like it. It's cute.
It's tenderfoot.tv, and we have a whole illustration concept. We're a group of people that are like, we're not just into only crime, so that kind of can weigh on you. So we wanted to make our website that's more inviting and not like, we're now growing to be a full content creation company that's going to do everything from A to Z. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to have something that was more representative of where we're going and not just like our hits from the past.
The history, right.
Yeah, so check out the website.
Nice, absolutely. And thank you guys, or thank you, Donald, for being here. And thank you guys for tuning in. As always, you can find the podcast, IDM Podcast, on all social media platforms, as well as myself at Sammy Approved. Thank you again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem.
All right.
Sonically superior.